Okay, hello. My name is Commissioner Reggie Bellamy. Welcome to all of you tuning in into our virtual town hall hurricane preparedness meeting tonight. Um, Obviously, what's going on in our community with coronavirus quarantine, we've had restrictions on group gatherings and made it possible for the emergency manager office to make their usual visits to neighborhoods and community meetings to pass along the most important message of hurricane seasons. We do have other challenges that we're actually out there right now also. So what we're deciding to do is to reach out a different way and with this webinar of town halls. Thanks to all of you for joining us today to get important information for the hurricane prep in this unusual time. Tonight, we have Steve Listrauer, our Emergency Management Chief, and Jake Sauer, our Public Safety Director. Together, they have more than 50 years of combined public service in our community. Guys, thank you for everything that you all do. Mr. Listrauer is going to tell you how you can find out if your home is safe, whether or not it's a shelter in place, if you live in an evacuation zone, pertinent information that's needed in order for you to make tough decisions in case you need to evacuate. If an evacuation notice goes out, we will open up public shelters with social distancing restrictions and other safeguards. However, the coronavirus is extremely dangerous and extremely contagious. There's no perfect way to prevent germs from getting into a shelter or to keep germs from spreading inside, even if people are wearing face masks and washing hands regularly. So whatever you want to do, you want to make sure that you proceed with caution, not just evacuating during a hurricane, but at all times. This year more than any other, we need to make sure you get in front of this and have a plan and a place to go if a strong storm is coming our way. A public shelter should be your absolute last resort. And with that, I will turn it over to our director, Mr. Sauer, and our Chief Listrauer for a 20-minute presentation, and then he'll take some time to answer your questions. Guys?
Good afternoon, everybody. Steve's going to go through a presentation real quick that will go over this year's preparation for hurricanes. And then after that, we're available to take any questions that you may have, and we'll explain how to do that as well. So Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. My name is Steve Litcher. I'm your Chief of Emergency Management. The overview we're going to go through over the next few minutes is to know your home, and what we're talking about there is the construction of your home, what year it was built, what winds it will withstand, knowing your level and that's your evacuation levels, some evacuation tips, preparing your home, sandbag locations and shelter locations, and when to use 911 versus 311 and what they're both designed for. So hurricane season started last week with June 1 through November 30th. This year, 2020, will be just a little bit busier with a few more named storms. These are all predictions. What I need to remind you of, though, it's only the 11th of June, and we already have 3 named storms. And what we always tell everybody every year is it only takes one. So whether it's the letter A as in Andrew in 92 to Michael 2 years ago, it only takes that one. So do not key in on that we're going to have X amount of storms or X amount of hurricanes. What we want to remind you of, and recent studies have shown, is that for our area of Florida on the Gulf Coast, some of the major hurricanes that have hit Florida in the last 100 years have gone from your typical rainy afternoon day to a major hurricane in less than 3 days. That is why we need you to prepare now than later, is because as it's coming and you only have 3 days, that does not give you much time. So we want to make sure you are prepared now than later. Excuse me. We just got in the 2020 all hazard guides. Most people call them hurricane guides. We do have them. So if you live in a home HOA Condo Association, you can contact us to arrange pickups. They are available in our county libraries. And this link here, if you did mymanatee.org, if you forgot everything else, you could put in hurricane guides, and it is also available online. So we want to make sure you know that's out there. It's a great resource to have, has some phone numbers to run through. So that's a great resource. Have a disaster kit, and I said have it now, not later. We used to teach 3 to 5 days. Now we're saying at least a week, and actually 7 to 10 days is preferable. So have enough food, enough water, enough batteries to last you 7 to 10 days. And what other items would you need? You need items now, mask, gloves, and sanitizer. As we get in to talk about shelters, we will be providing those in the shelters, but it's better if you brought your own. But in your disaster kit, above anything of any other year, if you see my cursor moving around, if you are on a computer, your typical, you need water, you need money, cash, because ATMs don't work. A lot of people forget the good old can openers, phone chargers, but to have a supply that will last at least a week, if not 7 to 10 days. So stock up now. Something that we don't want to forget about is the children. Now, you may not have children living with you, but we do live in paradise. And guess what we have? We have our children visiting, we have grandchildren, nieces and nephews down. So if they, and when do they come? They come during hurricane season. So please prepare for them also. Board games, card games, friendly snacks for the kids, but you need to prepare them if you do lose power, or if you do have to evacuate, or even if you shelter in place. Think about the little ones too, besides what you might need. The other one is we love our fur babies, as we call them. We love our animals, and that's so important that you have to prepare for them also. And when we're doing that, you need their food, you need their medicine. If you're going to evacuate, whether it's to a shelter, a friend's house, or out of town, have a crate for them. And if you do have a crate, we take it from Animal Services, that crate needs to be large enough that the animal can stand up and turn around in. You don't want to abuse your animal. You want to make sure that crate is big enough for them to move around in. Here's something very important, and we talked about this, is the strength of your home. The strength of your home. If your home is 2012 or newer, it will, by Manatee County building codes, it will withstand 150-mile-an-hour wind, which is a high category 4. 2002 to 2012 is 130-mile-an-hour wind, which is also a category 4. And before 2002, 110-mile-an-hour wind, which is a category 2. So keep that in mind, and that's what when we talk about know your home. So if it's a category 1 or 2 coming in, or even a 3, and you built from 2002 on, your home was built by standards to withstand those winds. We evacuate for 2 reasons. One is storm surge, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then also people living in manufactured homes and mobile homes, because any winds, probably 40-mile-an-hour wind, we are concerned of your safety because of the wind. But the primary reason is storm surge, and that's what we base evacuations level on, and we'll go over that in a few minutes too. Preparing your home, it's so important to prepare your home, whether you use shutters, plywood. A big thing we wanted to remind you of is picking up items in your yard and around your yard, because that chair that you left out in your yard may end up through somebody's plate glass window. So as storms are approaching, I always get told, bring in the patio furniture, the barbecue grills, the bicycles, and so forth, but to secure your home, whether it's shutters, plywood, hurricane windows, but make sure your home is secure as the storm's approaching. Don't wait to the last minute. We'll give you warning that it is coming, but like I said, some of the major storms have come through in within 72 hours. Something to remind you of, this is a consideration that when winds are sustained of 45 miles an hour or more, EMS and fire quit responding because of the safety, and law enforcement at 55 mile an hour sustained winds or more. So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil, these are two great websites to go for. The first one is, I'm going to try to demonstrate to those of you that are on a computer. So let me see if I can get this brought up here. All right, sorry for the delay. So you will see this. It's Know Your Level. So if you're watching the computer screen, I'm going to enter the address of the county administration building. So I entered the address of the county administration building. If you're following my cursor, you see in this area under public safety, the evacuation level, depending on where on the property, it's located in a C and a D. So if I was the resident living there, I would follow the instruction of evacuation level C. The other item we want to point out to you is over here under property information. If you follow my cursor down to the year built, and it shows 1989. So there we would know that that building under building code is less than 110 mile an hour wind. So if it was a category 3 or 4, I would want to evacuate. If it was only a 1 or a 2, most building code would have that it would withstand those winds. So write down those, but when in doubt, mymanatee.org and enter Know Your Level or emergency information. The next screen I'm going to show you now is the sandbag and shelter locations. If you see on the screen, again, if you're watching, the little red schoolhouses are locations of the shelters. Over here, you see my cursor. If the schoolhouse is red, that shelter is closed. If it turns green, it is open. What we want to let you know is we do not open all the shelters at once. There's 24 of them. We open them in phases. So don't get accustomed that, oh, I live down the street from this school, that's where we'll go. Because we open them in phases depending on which direction the storm is coming. Is it coming straight in off the Gulf? Is it coming from the south? Is it coming from the east? So we do not open all of the schools at once. The other one, if you follow my cursor again on the screen, the dark color sandbags are sandbag locations. So if it's black, that location is closed. Over here, if it turns a brownish color, that sandbag location is open to pick up sandbags. A great tool for y'all to know what is open and what is not, both on shelters and sandbags. Give me a moment to switch back on screens. All right, if you must evacuate, please try to go tens of miles and not hundreds of miles. If you lived here a few years back during Hurricane Irma, you knew how much the roads were congested, how long it took you to get out of town. So we want you to go tens of miles and not hundreds of miles. But what we want you to do is go out of an evacuation area. So keep close contact on our alerts and the media of, is it an evacuation A, B, C, etc., and get out of that area. You don't have to go totally out of state. You can go to a hotel in a safe zone. If you do go out of town, make sure you leave in plenty of time. Leave as early as possible if you are leaving town. As we spoke earlier, as the commissioner spoke and the director, shelters are there. We do have room, but with social distancing, the amount of space has totally decreased by a great degree. In the photograph, that's what a normal shelter would look at. Those people are not 6 feet apart. So we have decreased the amount of shelter space. So only go to a shelter if you have nowhere else to go. And it should be a refuge of last resort. We used to say it's a lifeboat, not a cruise ship. It's more like a canoe now. It's a safe place to go, but we encourage you to go somewhere else, a family, a friend, a hotel room, or out of town. The other thing with a shelter is you have to bring all of your own supplies, sleeping mattress, a cot, a fold-up chair, your bedding, things like that. So a shelter is a safe location, but we prefer you going elsewhere because of social distancing. We do have a program called Special Needs Shelters, and that is if you're oxygen dependent, electric dependent, or Alzheimer's and dementia. You can sign up if you follow our mymanatee.org again and hit on needs. There's an application. We really ask you to apply for that now than later, because that way we know how many people are coming, so we can stock the amount of workers. We know how much room we have. We can arrange transportation. So please sign up now if you fall under those three categories and need special location to go. We encourage you to sign up for Code Red, which sends out notices of alerts. A new thing this year, you've heard of by COVID-19, is what we call Manatee Ready. So if you text Manatee Ready at 888-777, you'll receive text messages of whatever may be going on. Right now, we send things out regarding COVID. If a storm's coming, we'll send out text messages regarding the storm. But otherwise, sign up for Code Red and you will get messages directly from us. Another thing we want to talk about is there's right now 7 CERT teams, Community Emergency Response Teams. These are community-based and are volunteers. Those are our eyes and ears of neighborhoods of what is happening. They stay in contact with us. They support their neighborhoods and communities. They receive extra training. They're not first responders, but they're local folks there to help out their community. If you have interest in that and you have one in your area, I encourage you to join them. We will be starting up training for additional ones as the COVID pandemic leaves us, but it's a great tool to have out there. As always, we can have, we're on Facebook, Twitter. 311 started this past year, where before this year, if you had a question of Public Works, you call Public Works. If you had a question of utilities, you called them. Now, instead of dialing 911, you can dial 311 for non-emergency questions. And that will be beefed up in additional staff. So during a storm, if you want to know what shelter is open, please dial 311 instead of 911. Or if you wanted to know where sandbags were, but we're always out there on social media. And so remember to dial 911 only the report of emergency, fires, crime in progress, so forth. Don't dial 911 for directions, loud noise, power outages. Please dial 311 for that. So this concludes my presentation. My email is there. This is my office phone number. I'm going to revert now back to Director Sauer and see if he has anything to add, and then we'll entertain further questions.
So just some final wrap-up comments is this year presents us with an extraordinary piece of the puzzle when we talk about hurricanes and evacuations. So if we have a hurricane that is coming towards Manatee County and we feel that it's necessary to start implementing evacuations, we will do evacuations through A, B, C, D, and E. And when we talk about voluntary evacuations, we will probably not do those. And that's for a host of different reasons. But when we talk about evacuations, now is the time to really get with your friends outside of your evacuation zone, outside of evacuation zones within Manatee County, maybe in the next county over that you can evacuate to, or family members that are outside of evacuation zones, especially within Manatee County. And the reason for that is we're trying to social distance within shelters as well, which has drastically reduced our ability to shelter our normal amount of people who shelter or seek shelter within during a hurricane. So you should make plans now with friends and family out of evacuation zones. Remember, we evacuate when we talk about homes for flooding, not for wind. So if you're in a flood zone or evacuation zone, your best bet is to make a plan now with friends, family outside of those evacuation zones, because a shelter really is a last resort. It is not going to be comfortable. It is going to possibly, be. We're going to try all measures that we can to prevent the spread of COVID-19, but we can't guarantee that. So that's just the nature of the game. And we talk about close quarters and spreading out and being inside buildings during a storm. Secondly, that limited space due to social distancing, we have to really reserve for those within mobile homes, those less fortunate, such as the homeless. Those are who really needs those types of shelters. So if you have the ability, now is the time to really reach out to your friends and family outside of evacuation zones to start making those plans now, because as Steve mentioned, as storms approach, especially with the heat of the Gulf and intensified global warming, we know that storms now start out a level category 2, category 3, and they quickly intensify. So when we talk about storms entering or coming from the Atlantic or entering in the Gulf, and it's a category 2, that can quickly, and in fact, all of last year's storms quickly intensified to a category 4 or 5 within hours. So now is the time to start making those preparations. I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Bellamy, or I'm sorry, Steve, and we can see if anyone has any questions.
Commissioner, did you want to speak before I entertain questions? Unmute. Need to unmute. There you go.
I just want to echo what both of you all are saying, and make sure that you take the time out and have a plan for your family and your friends, and communicate with them so you are prepared. We don't know what hurricane season is going to bring. We do recall in 2017, I recall in 2017 when Hurricane Irma came through, having to evacuate to a school with my family and everything like that. Those options will probably not be there again because of the coronavirus. And we need to make sure that we inform you all to have a plan and get in front of this, because we do not want the hurricane risk and the invisible man, which is what I'm causing the coronavirus, to create more health issues in our community. So we want you all to be proactive instead of reactive. Do the best you can to have a plan.
Okay, the way you ask questions, and I already have someone there, if you're on the phone, *9, and on your computer, you see you raised your hand. There's a little thing, raise your hand. I have 2 people. So I'm going to go to Carol. What is your question?
She's muted, Steve.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay. Am I correct in understanding that you only call for, emergency managers only call for evacuation if there's a storm surge or if you're in a mobile home, but not for wind?
Um,
Not for wind velocity?
no, our evacuations are based upon storm surge and mobile homes.
So if something's coming toward us, if we're not in a flood zone or in a mobile home, and something's coming toward us and it goes to category 4, what do we do?
Well, that's what we want you to be familiar with your home strength.
Right,
So
we are.
there, because I'll pick any given neighborhood, 2 houses next to each other. One could have been built in 1960 and the other one could be built in 2020. So the home built in 2020 would withhold that
Right,
stance.
right.
So we can't just say evacuate this neighborhood for winds because we do not know the constructions of the home. What we will be saying is there's a category 1, 2, 3 coming, and that's going back to knowing the strength of your home. And so if you live in an older home and it is a category 3, 4, or 5, then you still need to evacuate. But our normal evacuation levels, that map is based upon storm surge.
Okay.
I'll just add one more thing is even older homes built in the 50s and 60s, as they've gotten older, homeowners make improvements to those homes. So new roofs. When you put on a new roof, even to an older home, it has to meet those same codes of today. New windows, storm impact windows, storm shutters. Even if you did nothing to your home and you put storm shutters on your home, that greatly increases that home's ability to survive winds through a hurricane. So you know your home best.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
I think we know this this caller here, Steve.
I do believe so. Hey, Deb.
Can you hear me?
Yep, there you go. How are
Okay,
you?
good. Listen, I got the mymanatee.org /information, but the other one I did not get.
Okay.
Are you going to issue your PowerPoints or post them somewhere or what?
No, but let me give you after the org, Debbie. It's
Okay.
/emergency info. Emergency info. But in lack of anything else, you can go to manatee.org and just put in sandbags too.
And these meetings are being recorded. I do believe that they will be posted online.
Yes,
As well.
and so you'll
Oh,
have,
okay.
okay.
Okay, got it.
All right. Trying to see any other questions. Press raise hand or *9. Any other questions? I do not see either. So I thank you for attending. You can always get a hold of us. Oh, there we go. Okay, we do have somebody. All right. And Stephen, if you would unmute yourself.
Yes, this will be our first summer in our home. And
Did we lose him?
I lost you. You unmute yourself, please.
okay,
Okay, there you go.
this is our first summer in our home in Lakewood Ranch. And if our windows are rated, high, is it necessary to be prepared with plywood to cover the windows?
I recommend it, and as I explain a lot of times over the years, it's what comfort level you have. The more you can prepare, the better. So some people think a deadbolt lock is good enough. Some people want a deadbolt lock and security cameras. Some people want a deadbolt lock and alarm system. So the more is always better. But if you have hurricane-proof windows, I mean, that is why the builder had them put in. But to me, the more the better. But you have to weigh out. It's like insurance on your car or your home. what level do you feel comfortable with? Director, do you have any additional to that?
Yeah, and I'll just add homes built 2007 and on. That home builder is required to provide the first homeowner shutters or plywood for windows within the home. So you should have those somewhere within your home. If you're new to that home, hopefully the homeowners, when they first built that home, left you those shutters that are required to be given to the first homeowner when that home was built. It was built 2007 and on. So we do highly recommend that you use those.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Star 9 or raise your hand, please. Star 9 or raise your hand. Okay, I see no further questions. Commissioner, do you have any remarks?
I think I'll do the closing, and unless the director has it and he wants to close it out. We just thank everybody for joining us this evening. Please make sure it's clear that we're going to make this video available for viewing on the same area of our website that you find today's call-in information. Look for the on-demand meeting area at mymanatee.org/town hall. Please don't forget to fill out our 2020 census. Make sure that you do your 2020 census. That is so important to make sure that we make Manatee count. That's pretty much it for me. Everybody be safe. Guys, thanks for everything that you all do. Mike, in your hands.
Okay, Director, any further comments? Okay, thank you for attending, and stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Everyone, take care.